I'm Gary YouTube from Cultaholic.com, and it's time for some more Gary YouTubing, this time in the form of a tier list where we're going to rank every single NXT Men's World Champion in the history of that illustrious WWE Championship. And wouldn't you know it, I'm looking over there and I can see another Gary YouTube, this time taking the head and the body and the blazer and the lovely pristine white shirt of Tom Campbell, also from Cultaholic. How are you doing, Gary?
I am wild and young, Gary YouTube, and we have just begun. How are you, sir?
I'm lovely. The roar of the crowd is here. It's inspiring. I don't know what I'm saying, Gary, but we'll move on.
The crowd. A song by Coheed and Cambria was also used.
We are not your kind.
We are not your friends. I don't know. I've enjoyed it. Are we ranking NXT theme musics? I mean, that's fun.
We should do like show themes at one point, because I'm very passionate about those sort of topics.
Oh, Thorn in Your Eye is lovely, lovely, lovely. Without a
Rise Up from SmackDown back in the day needs to be top tier.
Oh, nice. Can we put Know Your Enemy in the bin, though? Whose idea was that?
Well, it says enemy, and they have enemies on the show, Tom, so you know, it fits the gimmick, does it not?
That's true, that's true. I do know me enemy.
Besides the point, we're here to speak about NXT Champions, of which there have been 16 different ones in the history of this thing. Adam Cole, bye-bye, is the longest reigning NXT champion of all time, with his reign currently at around 371 days when this video hopefully goes live. We've had two times champions, that being Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura. The things appeared on the main roster, Tom. Any more stats you want to know? Those are the ones I've got written down there. I don't know what to say now. Let's hit the intro.
Seth Rollins, the first one.
Seth Rollins is the
Jinder
first
Mahal
one,
in a tournament final.
He did do that. We're going to speak about that just after this intro. Hit the intro, man. Whoa. Just in case you haven't been here before, we're going to put each and every champion in NXT Championship history into this lovely, lovely tier, which has several tiers going from the best, lovely, all right, just about bearable, and then get in the bin. And Thomas, we're starting off with Seth Rollins, as you say. His reign, well, the NXT Championship, we should say, let's give a bit of history. Well, it was established on July the 1st, 2012. Rollins had been in FCW for close to 2 years, I believe it was, before he won the thing. Then they had a big old Gold Rush tournament involving some of your favourite superstars from the last decade. But Rollins defeated Drew McIntyre, Michael McGillicuddy and Jinder Mahal to win the bloody thing. Mahal obviously in the final. So yeah, when you're hearing Seth Rollins NXT champion, what comes to your mind straight away?
Well, obviously it's the historical side of it. Like you'll use the first one. This was the sort of the coming out party for Tyler Breeze. Not Tyler Breeze. Tyler. What was his name in Ring of Honor? Wasn't Black. Tyler Breeze?
Tyler Black.
Tyler Black. This was the coming out party of Tyler Black. Oh, this is a cracking start to the tier list.
It's Friday morning.
The coming out party for Tyler Black, who had a run in Ring of Honor as a champion that hadn't really caught the world on fire. As you say, FCW, people were really getting behind the whole Seth Rollins character. And then here he is, top of the tree, NXT champion. A sign of big things to come for Seth Rollins. In terms of that title reign, at this point, though, Seth Rollins, the NXT Championship at this point, wasn't the prestigious belt that it is today. I mean, even the look of the belt made it feel very much like it was very much. It knew its role at that point. It was a developmental belt on a developmental brand, so it didn't have the prestige that it needed. And it was even whilst he was NXT champion that he was called up and did the thing with the Shield. So that was what led to him dropping the belt. So it's. I'd obviously, like, historically you want to put him in at lovely, but I wouldn't, based on his title reign, simply because it wasn't the most prestigious of title reigns. And I think, Gary, that you and I are going to have an issue because so many of these guys in this list are such great wrestlers, such great performers, that you could easily just go, put them all in, lovely, lovely, lovely. But we're trying to base it on their time as an NXT champion. So I want to put him. I want to put him in just about. Just in this. I want to put him second up, just underneath lovely, lovely, lovely.
All right. I think we need to go a little bit lower, Tom. I've been doing a bit of research here because obviously everyone remembers when Rollins wins the thing. He beats Jinder Mahal, Dusty and Triple H are in the ring. They're raising the arms. It's a lovely, wholesome moment, but it's what comes after that. That's the issue. As we say, we're here to rank the NXT champions, and we've surely got to base that on their reign. Rollins won the thing in the summer. He was called up to the main roster. Obviously, Survivor Series it was, wasn't it, when they attacked Ryback and put him through the table? That was just a few months. During that time, Tom, July, Rollins had 5 matches. August, he had 6. September, he had 6. October, he had 3. And November, he had just the 2 NXT matches. So as we say, NXT, we're coming away from the game show era. The whole new thing's just trying to find its identity. We weren't really on the WWE Network in a featured slot like we would become on a Wednesday night and whatever. So I think this reign has really been hampered just by NXT. The stage of NXT's life really hampered this title reign. So I'm going to say bearable. Okay. Is that fair? Because can you name, apart from obviously when he dropped the title to Big E, can you name a defence he had that sticks out in your mind as a memorable match?
I believe. Do you not defend against Victor from the Ascension?
Victor from the Ascension was one. Michael McGillicuddy was another, who he obviously defeated in that tournament. So there was tie-backs there, but this was a stepping stone. Obviously. The plans for the Shield, they've been well documented with Cassius Ohno being in, then out, and being CM Punk's pick, whatever the story was. That must have been in the works when Rollins won the title, surely. That would seem like a thing that had been bigged up for a long time. So, you can't... Again, it's just the fact there's no real stick-out matches, which again, it might be because of where NXT was at the time. It's got to be one of the lower tiers, I would say.
Yeah, let's put him in bearable.
Let's put him in.
I'm down with that, Gary.
It's not really his fault, though, is it? It was more NXT's life.
It was more just where NXT was, and it was, by the fact that he was called up midway through a title run. Like you wouldn't dream of doing that now. Like the way that the story of Matt Riddle getting called up to SmackDown is so different to how they would have done it in years gone by, where it would have just gone, Matt Riddle's on SmackDown from next week. Deal with it. Bye. Whereas like this time, like they've had to really work hard to get him storyline-wise clear of NXT before moving him there. Like they make so much more of an effort to get people in positions like that now. Whereas back then, Seth's doing this now, so can we just sort that out? Cheers.
That's one of the. Is it the major drawback with NXT? How most we got AJ Styles in the club from not too long ago, they just went straight to the main roster. But lots of people now, they have to go on NXT and you get to know them and then you get to know one version, then they come to the main roster and by and large it's not the same. We don't have those surprise debuts really anymore, do we?
Well, it's big. I think the expectation when you build somebody, and we'll get to some of these names as we go through the list, like the expectation is so high when they come to the main roster because of the way they have been presented on NXT. In some cases, it's an unreachable high for them, and like I said, we'll talk about quite a few of those as we go through.
Yeah, so Rollins dropped the title to Big E, a match that was recorded in the December of 2012 but didn't air until January the 9th, which is when Big E's title reign is recognised as starting. It was a no DQ match. It was a lovely match. Big E should have been a world champion by now. I think we all are in agreement with that. I hope you are, Tom, otherwise I'll fight you.
No, I'm with you. And here's the thing. If this was New Day Big E as NXT champion, we'd be putting him in the top tier. But yes, because this is like 3 ain't enough, no I need 5, Big E smacking the powder on his hands, just a little bit, just hasn't quite come out of his shell yet, still very much cocooned, and he's still not quite in a position where he's found his true pace. So with that in mind, like I think put him in bearable. Like the reign itself wasn't the strongest. I'm happy that he has a singles title reign like that to his credential, obviously as well as Intercontinental title as well. But I want New Day Big E to get a singles run. This wasn't New Day Big E. Put him in bearable.
The unbelievable thing was, he won, obviously his title reign is recognised as starting in January, It was either later that month or in February, he was on the main roster house show Loop, doing tag team matches with Dolph Ziggler with AJ Lee at ringside. So why they decided to put the title on this guy when they obviously had bigger plans for him in the not too distant future is a really baffling call. But once again, just like Rollins, Tom, I'm going to ask you, can you remember any memorable Big E title defences down in NXT?
Was it Victor from The Ascension?
I've got some names for you.
I think he just fought
Axel
everybody.
Keegan? Any relation to Kevin? I've got no idea. Is it Axel Keegan?
I have no idea. I had no idea that he defended it against Axel Keegan.
That was his first title defence, which lasted 54 seconds, my research has told me. But he would also wrestle, not Victor, but Connor from The Ascension when he was Conor O'Brien. And Cesaro, I guess, was the big one. But as we say, he was on the main roster house show Loop doing tags with Dolph Ziggler. Baffling call to put the title on him anyway. It's nice to see they did so. It's got to go in and around Rollins once again. I'd argue Rollins was maybe slightly better. I don't know if that's fair. The match with Cesaro, I guess, is one. Now you talk about it, you can't remember it happening.
I recall that Big E Cesaro match, and it was good. It was a good showing. Whether that puts him... I want to put him just above Rollins.
Should we put him just above Rollins?
I want to put him just above Rollins. I feel
put him in all right? Is that a bit too much of a jump, or just above him in just about bearable?
Oh, above him in bearable. They're both bearable.
Above him in bearable.
They're both staying in bearable.
A victim of what NXT was at this time, and the fact that the people in charge obviously had different plans for him when they put the title on him. But next up, Tom, I hope you're in agreement with me, because we have Bo Dallas, who took the title off Big E, and Bo Dallas in NXT. This is going to be so weird to say if you started watching wrestling after about 2015, but Bo Dallas in NXT was absolutely unbelievable.
There was a wonderful subtlety to Bo Dallas as he ran with the NXT title, like a kind of very casual madness of King George type thing, where he would just start being a bit snarkier and a bit more underhanded as his reign went on, and the way his reign ended as well is as memorable as the way his reign began, and the whole package of him in NXT. Whilst I still don't know if I want to put him in the best, because again we are basing it on that title run and that prestige, and I think that whilst he was very much a catapult for what NXT would start to become, I kind of want to put him in lovely.
I think that's fair based off what's to come, but Bo's reign with the NXT title, Tom, was 280 days from when that match aired in the June. He was 22 years old when he won the bloody thing, which is unbelievable in itself. But his story in NXT is what made him the champion he became, because he started off as the plucky underdog babyface with that glove on. As we're learning with Sean Spears, that's a throwback to the 80s and loaded heels and whatnot, which makes you wonder why he was wearing it when he was a babyface. Anyway, the babyface run wouldn't last too long, because crowds would just basically turn on Bo, and I think they realised that the powers that be had big plans for him. I think he wasn't really connecting as a baby face, and then seeing that, what we're like as wrestling fans, we see someone the machine's behind, but we're not behind him, we turn our backs on them. But the fans in NXT would literally turn their backs on Bo. When he would make his entrance down the ramp, they would turn around in the crowd and look the other way. It was fantastic. He was
very much Bowman Reigns in NXT.
Bowman Reigns. Good God, there's a reason you're in this job. That's fantastic. But I would argue he's the most interactive NXT champion or NXT wrestler of all time. The back and forth he would have with the crowd. The crowd was his main rival. It was that moment where when he got kicked out of NXT, not the way he lost the title, but his departure from NXT, when he's like, I don't want to use language like this, but you all smell. And then the crowd just start laughing at him, and they're like, I've undersold that completely. You need to watch it. He's dragged out the arena. He's like 2001 Kurt Angle. He was oblivious to the fact he was a dick.
Absolutely, and which is why I think he belongs in a very high tier. He was, like I said, he was sort of the start of the changing of the mindset of NXT, which we'll move with our next champion. That very much becomes.
Do you remember the highlight of the reign for me, apart from his obviously departure from NXT, was the whole thing with Sami Zayn?
The back and forth those two had.
He had the open challenge where he was like, anybody from NXT can challenge me to a match, but Zayn, who he was feuding with at that time, Zayn, you're not allowed to compete against me. So Sami Zayn rocked up as who, Tom? Can you remember?
Well, Sami Zayn didn't rock up at all. El Generico turned up instead.
El Local, actually.
El Local, I apologise.
Aye, so he defeated Dallas to earn a title shot down the line, but Bo would retain the title against Sami, and then we got to that. It must have been the greatest match in NXT up to that point, I guess, the ladder match against Neville. And the reaction Neville got when he took the title off Bo was just testament as to how good Bo was with the title.
But this is because it was a story that was built almost over a year, because Bo Dallas got the shot at Big E because he won the Battle Royal, and in doing so he eliminated his then tag team partner Adrian Neville, and Neville had all this time to fester on what had happened and the breakup of his team with Bo Dallas. So when Neville and Bo finally met in the first NXT ladder match, and Neville took the belt from him, it felt like it was a beautiful story that started cool in the middle and then got white hot as they got to that ladder match, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's just a shame. He had a good start on the main roster with the Bo Leaf stuff, but bring back NXT Bo. He can only be about 30 years old now. There's still legs in the guy. Bring that gimmick back. He's amazing. Anyway, we move on to Neville, who held the title for 287 days, and this, for me, Thomas, is where NXT sort of went to that next level with Neville as champion.
It's the birth of NXT here. Adrian Neville, or as Jack called it in the ranked video that we did on the Cultaholic YouTube channel, he called it the beginning of the work rate era for NXT. This is where NXT started just becoming synonymous with great matches, and Adrian Neville was one of those. He headlined the first TakeOver. He had phenomenal matches that were star makers in some cases. And whilst he was the good guy, near the end of his run, there were those little flickers of heelness. In particular, the stuff that he did with Sami Zayn, and I love those shades of grey when they come in. And Adrian Neville just grew as a performer, as NXT champion, and for that, I want to put him in the best.
I fully agree with you. Sami Zayn's chase for Neville's NXT title is what made NXT's title reign so great. Just how Sami got so close on so many occasions but couldn't quite get over the line to win the title. We had obviously Neville's the best matches, I think, from that reign, with the fatal four-way match they had with Tyler Breeze and Tyson Kidd and Sami Zayn, and then they had the big match at Our Evolution, where I think Sami would have to leave NXT if he lost the match, and obviously we're going to win, everyone would go mental. Kevin Owens would come down, and that would be a thing we'll get onto in a second. But the hug between Neville and Sami Zayn at the end, when they've been going back and forth for a while, the handshake that turned into a hug. Moments, fantastic moments.
There was one bit in that match that doesn't get talked about because it's only very subtle, and it's as Sami Zayn is finally, like, he's survived an onslaught from Neville, and suddenly Neville finds himself in the corner, which means it's like time for the haluva kick. Sami Zayn's on the other side of the ring, and the camera zooms in as Sami Zayn does this, like, it's Sami Zayn realising, oh my god, now this is going to happen. This is the time. And it's just it gives me goosebumps. Little stuff like that Sami Zayn was so good at. And then lo and behold, haluva kick, and off went Sami Zayn to become NXT champion. But, it was a great moment. And the way that, again, like with Bo, the way that Neville's title reign started and ended, both phenomenal. He went on to go and do stuff on the main roster. And it was only just as he was departing that we were finally seeing, our War Nev finally cracking it,
Yeah, the bastard was unbelievable. Yeah, what a shame about the way his main roster career went. But anyway, the journey to the title for Sami Zayn was a lot better than the actual reign for Sami Zayn. This is going to be weird if you started watching wrestling over the past couple of years alone, because believe it or not, Sami Zayn was an unbelievable babyface. He was known as the heart and soul of NXT, of course. He only held the thing for 62 days, but this reign was obviously used just to build up the brand new I don't want to say toy. It's Kevin Owens, the brand new star on the scene. Sami Zayn was a bit of a sacrificial lamb here.
I'm really sad that it was so that the title reign, my recollection of Sami Zayn's title reign was Sami Zayn getting powerbombed onto the apron by Kevin Owens after he won the belt, and then Sami Zayn being injured, and then Sami Zayn fighting against his old friend Kevin, and Kevin beating him by a stoppage, and that's it. Thank you very much. So, like you say, sacrificial lamb. Like, Sami was just there to build Owens, and this is something where the main roster would actually correct it, as opposed to going up and it going wrong. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens would have a phenomenal feud on the main roster. They brought out T-shirts to commemorate it, for goodness sake. I had a Fight Forever one with Kevin and Sami's faces split down the middle. I had to chuck it out because I'm not as fat as I used to be. So that's nice. But it was the one time where one of the very few occasions where a call up to the main roster gets rectifies stuff. So to see Sami and Kevin having some more competitive matches in the main roster was great. But Sami Zayn, I feel really sad because I was such a fan of Sami Zayn at this point in his career, but for basing it on champions, it's
got to be down in the similar level to Big E and Rollins, hasn't it? I don't think it gets in the bin, because obviously we all did feel sorry for Sami Zayn, because basically, if you didn't see it, the rivalry was Kevin Owens rocked up, had his debut match against CJ Parker, End of the night, Sami Zayn wins the title. Owens comes out, looks like he's going to celebrate with his best friend who he travelled the roads with for many years and had a big feud with. Well, I guess that was a different man. That was El Generico, who pissed off to Mexico. Sami Zayn is his best friend, of course. But no, Owens would turn on Zayn, clothesline on the ramp, powerbomb on the apron. He wants the NXT title. Then it would just be over the next few weeks, the next 62 days, Owens just attacking Sami Zayn week on week on week, to the point where they have this big match for the title and Sami Zayn's not fully fit. So, Sami Zayn didn't have much in the way of anything in this feud. It was just him getting beaten up by Kevin Owens, just to build up Kevin Owens as this big monster heel. So, bearable? Because it is a shame.
It's got to go back
It is a shame
not
to see Sami
with a bigger reign,
bearable. Huh?
It's got to go the back of bearable, isn't it?
The back of bearable.
Back of bearable. Because we are being brutal and we are basing it on title reign, right? And it's a bearable run. It's a non-run. It's a non-starter. But Big E and Seth, despite a lack of real strong opponents in some cases, there was more meat on the bone with that title reign. And so it has to. Sorry, Sami.
No, it's a shame the way he lost it as well, because I watched back the match last night. Actually, he does a big moonsault off the top rope. You know, the one where he does the old Van Damme moonsault off the top rope to the floor with the backs of his thighs. I forget what the move's called itself. But when he lands, he bangs his head. So it was his own stupidity that banged his head, and then Owens went, "Oh, this guy's a little bit knocked silly. I'm going to take advantage of this." Several power bombs later, the referee has to throw it off via stoppage. What's your feelings on that finish? Because it was very divisive at the time. I liked it, mate. Just you never really see it, do you? I
think it was divisive because because Sami's title reign had been so nothing.
Yeah.
But that's why it was divisive. In terms of the creativity of it, wow, what a way to establish Kevin Owens as this unstoppable monster of a heel. I won the belt because I refused to stop powerbombing my former best friend. That's powerful.
He was doing.
It was great. It was just so well done.
Yeah, doing it all for his family. And early on, Kevin Owens was my favourite. 2018 roster is probably slightly better than 2015 NXT roster, but I think 2015 is my personal favourite NXT roster of all time, with Kevin Owens being my personal favourite champion, maybe not, maybe champion we'll talk about later, but Kevin Owens' reign, 142 days he held the thing for, and this was around about the time where Kevin Owens, because his initials were KO, he would knock everybody out. Wow.
It's clever, isn't it? Simples. Kevin Owens' title reign was. Before we say anything else, this is the best, right?
Yeah.
Because this. We talk about how Adrian Neville sort of brought NXT into the work rate era. Kevin Owens took that belt onto WWE TV, and took it to John Cena, and faced John Cena. Held the NXT Championship over the US title.
Stomped on the US title.
Foot on the US title, NXT belt in the air. And not only did he go up and get in the face of John Cena on the main roster, he beats John Cena. Clean as a whistle. As the NXT champion.
That match was unbelievable. Because people, obviously, when you look at Kevin Owens, you don't think he can do the moves he can do, which is testament to how good he is. He was doing the twisted moonsault thing off the top rope. All the bells and whistles were coming up, but that promo where he first appears initially with John Cena in the ring, and Cena's giving them all like, "Oh, you're a rookie, you're just NXT, this, that, and the other." And Kevin Owens is like, "No, I've been around doing this for 15 years. You can shut up, you prick." It's just
that's exactly what he said.
Word for word, verbatim.
Shut up, prick.
He might have called them a doilum at one point, Tom.
You diddler, in the cultaholic sense of the word.
But the way they just let Kevin Owens not be made a fool of, it really did take NXT to the next Neville level, higher than the Neville level.
Higher than the Neville level.
Roster, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly really put them in a strong position. So and Owens and now Owens, not all of Owens' title matches or contendership matches were great. I seem to remember being really excited for Owens versus Samoa Joe, but it was a match that didn't really touch the sides for me. It was just it fell under. But then we had the stuff with Balor, and off to the races we go from there. But Kev really put NXT on the map. You can't not be the best.
Yeah, the matches against Balor were the highlight here, because the no contests were a bit of an issue with the reign itself, because he was a heel, and of course no contest is something a heel should probably be looking for if you're looking at things within the realms of kayfabe. He had one against Joe, as he said, one against Sami Zayn, because he went and just beat him down a bit too much, and the referee was like, "Well, we'll go away from this one." But after having the match against Balor, initially, we had the one in the Beast in the East. And because Finn Balor used to be a big deal over there in the Japan area, he's a big megastar.
Small mining town called Japan.
That small territory called Japan. It was the Demon Balor finally beat Kevin Owens to win the title. Then they have a big rematch at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, the first one. It was a ladder match, wasn't it? Kevin Owens could not win the title back. So off he went to the main roster to go and feud with Ryback for the Intercontinental Championship and all that malarkey. Speaking of, one thing I think a lot of people forget is Kevin Owens took the NXT title to the main roster more than once. Thomas. We had the matches with Cena. Then we had that one on SmackDown against Zack Ryder. Do you remember that one? And then we had a one with Heath Slater on main event, which I did not know happened at all.
I didn't know about the main event one. I seem to remember the Zack Ryder one. If memory serves, it was Kevin Owens sort of lampooning John Cena to go, "All right, Cena's doing this open challenge nonsense. Well, so am I." Who wants a shot at the NXT title? And there's Zack Ryder. Good, because God loves a trier.
But there we have it, Kevin Owens in the best. So then we move on to Finn Balor, who was at that time, he would be gone to become, I should say, the longest reigning NXT champion of all time. Obviously that record's been beaten as we're sat here in, it's June, isn't it? Bloody hell, June of 2020. 292 days Finn Balor held the NXT title for. He defeated the likes, to get the Beast in the East. No, what am I talking about, Tom? I'm getting mixed up here. He defeated Curtis Axel, Hideo Itami, and Neville in a number one contenders tournament to get that shot against Owens. The Beast in the East match was actually a rematch. The first one ended in a no contest, which Kevin Owens loved. Beast in the East happened. Then after that, we had Balor beating Owens in the rematch at TakeOver Brooklyn, Apollo Crews, and then the NXT title would sort of take a little bit of a sidestep for a little while because of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, where Finn Balor put on the wet dream of a team with Samoa Joe, which then would lead to Joe turning on Finn. Finn would beat Joe in Dallas and in London, but lost the title, and sit down if you don't know this story, because it's going to knock you all socks off. He beat him at a live event, which is unbelievable. I think it was April of 2016, around about that time. It's just crazy they would do that on a live event.
Anything can happen at WWE live events. Buy your tickets now. Anything can happen.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about Finn Balor as NXT champion? He's got to go in the best, surely.
See, this is where the best is going to get very crowded. We're going to need social distancing measures for the best, because there's quite a few coming in. Finn Balor, solid champion. Just, again, a guy that morphs NXT almost into his vision. I feel like he... Like you say, the belt took a back step because him and Joe, as friends in the Dusty Tag Team Classic, kind of became the focus. Whilst I don't know how I feel, I don't know how I felt about all of that. Obviously, like the Finn and Joe team for the Dusty Classic, I feel like I'm a stickler for like if two singles guys become a tag team, they should they should struggle against established tag teams.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit of a, in my head, that's how it should roll, because otherwise, what is the point of tag team wrestlers? What is the point of tag team divisions if two singles guys can team up and just beat everybody? And I'm not saying that they didn't win it without a fight. There were several great fights in that tournament, but I always prefer it when tag teams win that thing rather than just hoy together lads. And it did become a bit of a catalyst for a feud with them and some great matches. And as you say, the surprise after Finn seems to have sort of disposed of Samoa Joe, but Joe winning the belt on a live event. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Bit random.
It wasn't even a big live event either. It was a relatively small one by looking just at the footage itself. But yeah, after taking the title from Finn, Joe and Finn would then have a rematch, which is forgotten, as WWE like to rewrite their history from time to time. The Demon Finn Balor lost inside of a steel cage at TakeOver the End to Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe beat the Demon inside of a cage.
Good match, though.
Yeah?
Good match. Good match.
Very good match.
I was happy to watch that one go down. That was great. And we didn't touch on it enough, but Balor and Joe at TakeOver London was very good.
Yeah.
The whole Jack the Ripper motif for Finn Balor.
That was a bit iffy. There was a woman screaming, and then in walks Finn. Whoops! What have I done here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit peculiar, but as an aesthetic, it's certainly eye-catching. But yeah, I think put Balor in the best. I think put him near the back of the best, though. We'll sort out the order of the best at the end of the video, so we find out who is the greatest NXT champion of all time. But Samoa Joe, I would argue, does he go in the best? Because obviously he beat the Demon inside of a cage when he was champion, but he's the first ever two-time holder of the NXT Championship. His first reign was 121 days, and his second reign, in the midst of that Shinsuke Nakamura feud, lasted only 2 weeks. And I love Samoa Joe because he was like a bottle, Tom, of Newcastle Brown Ale. No bollocks. Remember those adverts from back in the day? Newcastle Brown Ale, no bollocks. I think this was Samoa Joe's greatest run in WWE as NXT champion. Obviously, he's done stuff on the main roster with some good people, Wendy, and all that. Yeah. But this was his best run. This was his best time. In terms of whether he was the best, I don't. Again, I'm nervous to run the risk of putting everybody in the best. I want to put him in. I want to put him in lovely.
That's fair.
As a champion, I feel like there was a couple of matches in amongst there that didn't quite hit the sides for me personally. But the fact that he's in the history books as two-time NXT champ is awesome. Samoa Joe is very much a force. Samoa Joe of like the mid-noughties, like ROH Samoa Joe as NXT champion would have just transcended the business. Like Joe just held, I think, does he still hold the record, I believe, for the longest reign as Ring of Honor champion?
I've got no idea,
And
Tom.
just putting on spellbinding matches with guys like CM Punk and the Briscoes and Austin Aries and all of that, and which was great. I think the NXT Samoa Joe was still very good, though. And this is probably the best work that he's done within the company, so I'm going to put him in lovely.
How do you feel about the Nakamura feud? Because we would get to take over Brooklyn the second instalment, where Nakamura would take the title from Joe after 3 Kinshasas, and the image of Joe with that, I think he dislocated his jaw properly out of kayfabe for realsies, and his jaw was just sort of locked like that.
You could tell he was almost like holding his jaw open or closed, wasn't he? He just had his hand there, like keeping it together.
I was going to say, how do you feel about Nakamura taking the title and then Joe taking the title back off Nakamura in that November, and then 2 weeks later, Nakamura taking the title back off Joe when they went over to Osaka, Japan, that little territory over there? How do you feel about the flip-flopping of the title?
I think this is one of the very rare occasions where they flipped and or flopped the NXT title. They are. I mean, the fact that Joe is one of two-time champions. Is that correct?
Yes.
That says all about how much they avoid the flipping and the flopping of the title. I wasn't against this because if you're taking a takeover to Japan, I liked Shinsuke Nakamura going in as challenger. I think although arguably maybe you could have avoided the flipping and the flopping by simply having Shinsuke win the belt for the first time in Osaka and do it there. Have that first win there. You could have waited a tiny bit, I think. You could have easily given Nakamura something else to do in the meantime and then had that happen there. It was fine for what it was. I think that if you had to have Nakamura going in as challenger, though.
Yeah. So then we get on to Shinsuke Nakamura, who is, of course, the second two-time NXT champion of all time. Well, the only other one. 91 days and 56 days. He had big matches leading up to the feud with Joe, with Ty Dillinger, Austin Aries and Balor, which is a bit of a, Japan, wow, a lovely match. The loss to Joe, when he dropped the title, was the first televised singles match loss he had in NXT, which is, I know it's a bit of a trope in NXT when somebody arrives to go on a long undefeated streak, but that, wow, that big loss there.
He had to lose at some point. He had to go at some point. So, again, you could have avoided it by just having him win the belt in Osaka and then go from there. You could have avoided it. You could have done. I don't think he, as much as I love the way that Nakamura was just dressed up upon his arrival in NXT, as phenomenal a performer as Shinsuke Nakamura is, I don't know whether I can put him in the best category.
I don't even think he's in lovely, lovely, lovely.
Really? See,
I think it was all right.
Okay, state your case for being all right.
Memorable matches when Nakamura had the title around his lovely svelte waist. How many great matches did he actually have? I think the matches he had before the reigns far superseded what he did with the title.
The build,
thoughts on that claim,
the
Tom?
chase. It's one of those cases where the chase is more intriguing than the catching, isn't it? Like it was him coming for the belt, which was more intriguing than him having the belt. That's a good shout. That's a good shout.
It's just when you look back at NXT and what's, I guess, the narrative, what's talked about from that around that time when Nakamura in NXT, it's all about the debut, isn't it? And it's the matches with Balor and stuff like that. Not necessarily
the Sami
what he
Zayn
did
match,
with the
which
title.
was just phenomenal. Great way to introduce him to the crowd. And do you know what? I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna be the better obscure company. Let's say Shinsuke Nakamura, right?
Just on the reign itself, before you burn us down, everybody in the comments. Seeing Bo above Nakamura, there's one hell of a visual for me looking at this tier.
And we are basing this solely on the title reign in NXT. So don't get angry. Like if you go Bo Dallas better than Nakamura, no, it's not what we're saying. Cool your jets, Winston. It's based on the NXT title reign, and you know what? In a capsule, Bo Dallas's title reign was far more intriguing than Shinsuke Nakamura's. It just was.
It's hard to believe, everybody, but it was. So Nakamura dropped the title to Bobby Roode at NXT TakeOver San Antonio. They then failed to reclaim the title at NXT TakeOver Orlando, and I was there live. And that match, I don't know if it was because it was the main event of a TakeOver event where you're like, wow, for like 3 hours before you get, 2.5 hours before you get to the main event. But it fell a bit flat. It did. It fell a bit flat. It just felt like the right time for Nakamura after WrestleMania 33 to go up to the main roster.
I think Nakamura and Bobby Roode are far too similar in the sense that NXT created this amazing allure around a character. This fantastic presentation, yet when the chase was over, so what we do from here? I don't know. And for me, Bobby Roode, like the entrance, the music, I was captivated. I love the presentation of Bobby Roode when he arrived in NXT, on that pedestal that lowered, having the big choir for the one entrance, the one time, like just all that stuff, all that effort in dressing him up. For me, in ring wasn't the greatest title reign. It really wasn't.
Bobby Roode's are we on about now?
Bobby Roode, yeah. Bobby Roode, not Nakamura. Bobby Roode I'm talking about now. Like there was some standout stuff, but majority of things, like the chase for like him and Hideo Itami had probably the strongest match of Bobby Roode's title reign. But
I think that was the point, though. The old school wrestling, I think we'll call it, the harking back to a different time, I think was the entire point of Bobby Roode's reign in the midst of work rate NXT, where you've got everybody flying and Nakamura doing 25 Kinshasas with 25 kickouts every single main event. Bobby Roode doing kicks and punches, and then his finisher being the end. I think that was the entire point, just to be that much, the juxtaposition of what NXT had become, and Bobby Roode. And by the way, Bobby Roode, this is going to be weird if you've just been watching wrestling since Bobby Roode's been on Raw and SmackDown. Now he's just a man who rocks up in his dressing gown and goes, I am here and I am absolutely glorious. I am going to wrestle a match and that is absolutely glorious. That sandwich over there is absolutely glorious. Everything's just absolutely glorious with no substance whatsoever. When Bobby Roode arrived in NXT, he was speaking about changing NXT from this little rinky-dink thing and bringing in the executives and bringing in all the big names and the glamour and the glitz and all that malarkey. He was going to change NXT and take it to a corporate level or whatever he was saying in the ring. That gimmick I just thought was fantastic. What they did with him on the main roster is scandalous.
There was certainly more meat on the bone in NXT. I thought the Bobby Roode in NXT sort of harkened back to me of Triple H circa 2003. Which was as you rightly say, like all these guys do all these wild and woolly things. I come out in a suit, I'm bringing business, I'm going to just wrestle. And yeah, I get that. But despite that, I'm basing it on the title reign, and his is a title reign that doesn't stand out to me personally. So, where are we sitting on this one, Ross? I love Bobby Roode as a character. I love the glorious stuff. I do. And you're right in the sense that it's been lost since he got to the main roster. I was furious when they turned him face. Somebody went, people like to sing the theme tune. Let's make him a babyface. Like, no! You've missed the point.
He should never be a babyface, Bobby Roode. He's just a natural heel.
Face. Like, I like maybe the idea of him leading a faction. That would have been, again, we're harkening back to Triple H of 03 with this particular Bobby Roode. But I can't put him. I certainly can't put him in the best. I certainly can't put him in lovely.
I would say, and on balance, I guess, yeah. It's definitely better than what Nakamura's was, I'd say. I think if we're going to base it off there, because you look at what he did, he had matches against Cassius Ohno for the title on the line, Hideo Itami. Roderick Strong was even getting title shots around this time, pre-Undisputed Era, of course. But it was the storylines that kind of let the thing down. They had this stuff with Ty Dillinger as well, where they tagged together in the Dusty Classic before Bobby Roode walked out on him, out of nowhere. And then he had the stuff with Strong where he was insulting Roddy Strong's family around the time. We got fantastic promo packages. Because for me, of Roddy Strong's early NXT career, his issue was just so bland. Fantastic wrestler, but in terms of a character, he was so bland. And we got the fantastic promo packages off the back of what Bobby Roode was saying about him, about his family, where they went to his house and stuff, and Marina was there with the young boy, her son. And it built like a lovely picture of Roddy Strong, but then it got to the wrestling. In the ring, you'd think, wow, this man's been insulting your family, who are clearly very wholesome and nice people. And then the match would just be a bit...
There was a moment in the match they had on NXT TV which I was a big fan of, where it looked like Roddy had beaten Bobby to the point where, if I remember correctly, music played and he ran out to the ring. He ran out of the ring celebrating, and then it was like your old school Dusty finish. It was like, well, no, the match is still going. So there was that moment I remember from the Bobby Roddy match. But yeah, apart from that, it was just like, I can't put him in lovely. He's got to go in all right.
Well, going all right, but above Nakamura. I think that's fair to say. So we're moving on to the current WWE champion, of course, Mr. Drew McIntyre. 91 days this reign was. It just didn't work at all. I don't think, even though Drew McIntyre had run the Indies, we'll say, not run the Indies, he was one of the main standouts for a couple of years before he went back to WWE, of course, for a lot of companies. For whatever reason, Drew McIntyre as a babyface in NXT just didn't work, did it?
We were still work in progress, I think, with McIntyre. Now he was back in the fold. Like you say, he'd been away, he'd become a star, he'd sort of rehabbed himself whilst away, and we're now seeing the Drew McIntyre that we always knew we deserved, and he's getting the push that he deserves too. But yeah, it just sort of, this felt quite rushed. I don't know where the fire was that they had to get the belt on Drew McIntyre, like, on his first takeover. It felt quite rushed, and it was, and not only that, it was like, hey, it's his first takeover. Bobby Roode's been defeated. Drew's the champion. Hey, wait a minute. Here's some lads. That will be known as the Undisputed Era. So even that moment where Drew becomes champ is watered down by the debut of the Undisputed Era, and then from there it doesn't really take off. It doesn't fit him for some reason.
Yeah,
it was a weird one.
The rust. It was the two main issues. Where, as you say, it being rushed, because I think he defeated Killian Dane in a number one contenders match, and he got the title match at Brooklyn, and then him and Bobby just kicked the poo out of each other. It was a really hard hitting match. It was a fine match for what it was, a fine Bobby Roode match in the realms of his style, I think we'll say, because of course we saw Drew McIntyre have all the great indie classics around the world over the previous couple of years, but then as well as it being rushed, you've got Adam Cole coming in for his debut. He debuts on this takeover immediately after Drew McIntyre's won the title. And Adam Cole, is just too cool, isn't he? I feel pathetic saying that, Tom, but you know what I mean.
He's just too cool. Way to go, guys.
Not in the similar vein as Grandmaster Sexay and Scotty Too Hot. You're not that kind of cool. But you know what I mean? It's like if you want one heel not to be against you when you're a baby face, it's Adam Cole. Because no matter what he does, you just can't help but think, wow, he's got him, isn't he? Yeah,
and I think that didn't help things for Drew either. And I feel bad saying that, because Drew is certainly up there with the best now in terms of like a WWE champion of the modern. Like I feel for him. I feel for Drew right now, because Drew has ascended to the top of WWE in a time which is so peculiar. You know, the fact that it was at a WrestleMania with no fans, and he's featured weekly on Monday Night Raw with viewers like dropping, and not to do with him. He's not doing anything wrong. He is grafting, but he's just a victim of the time, and I'm nervous that somebody will misinterpret the state of the business and assume it's down to Drew, when it's absolutely not. Drew is like this Drew. Is the WWE champion now. Had this been the Drew we had in NXT, we'd be putting him in the best, without a doubt. That fire, that intensity, that emotional connection, all there. It wasn't quite there with Drew at this point, and the reign didn't have much to it. So
it's clear that they're letting him be more of himself now on the main roster compared to what he was in NXT. Because in NXT, he was just Drew McIntyre's indie entrance with that theme that says at the start. I'm not going to say the word because we'll get demonetized. You know the theme I mean? When he's just like going around the ring and pacing really quickly. That was the Drew McIntyre that was in NXT, but now he's having a laugh while he's doing the wrestling. He's saying things to the crowd that's not there and stuff like that. He's just being more interactive as champion. But as for the reign itself, we'll go through the highlights. He had a match with Roddy Strong. That was on TV. That was on NXT 1 week. And the night before, War Games. I need to cover my microphone so it's not too loud. Sorry, headphone users listening on the podcast feed. McIntyre defended his championship, Tom, against Adam Cole with Shawn Michaels as the special guest ref at a house show in San Antonio, Texas. And that's just not fair.
We wanted that on telly. You selfish boys.
I mean, at War Games, he's defending the title against Almas, and the night before, he's defending it against Adam Cole, of all people, with Shawn Michaels as a special guest ref.
Could you not swap that around? That would have been far more intriguing.
But then, of course, we got to that War Games match, and Drew got injured in the match, didn't he, unfortunately, with the DDT off the top rope. That was his first loss in NXT. And that was it. I think people just realised he's got time to go away and heal from this injury now. We'll bring him back on the main roster. We probably should have taken him straight to the main roster, to be honest with you, because he'd been there before. He knew how it all worked. He was the complete package when he came back, I think it's all fair to say. And then he pissed around with Ziggler for a while, and that was nothing. But, you know, we've forgotten about that now. He's champion now. But Drew McIntyre is NXT champion. I think we've got to be looking bearable.
Put him in bearable.
Bearable.
I want to put him behind Nakamura. In bearable.
Nakamura's in all right.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. I want to put him.
Stage up.
Who's in bearable with him?
So Big E, Rollins, and Sami.
Okay. Put him.
I'd say he goes above Sami, just
above Sami. That's
just
a good
above
shout.
Sami.
Just above Sami.
I guess. He actually won a match with the title around his waist.
So that puts him above Sami.
So next up we move on to Andrade Cien Almas, who of course arrived in NXT as a man, a bland baby face with a pimp hat.
It's true.
That was it.
It's true.
That was literally it. That was his character. He was supposed to be a baby face. Nobody was connecting with him whatsoever. But then Zelina Vega arrived on the scene. He started doing the old tranquilo malarkey, which of course was what he did back in Mexico and whatever with Los Ingobernables and all that malarkey. I know things about wrestling, me. And everything changed. He went from this person nobody gave a toss about to somebody who just had it. And he was in the main roster picture almost immediately when Zelina Vega arrived on the scene.
He had such a renaissance when Zelina Vega turned up. Like I was done with Andrade. I didn't get it when he was the babyface. And I seem to recall, and I'm sure you'll tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. I'm sure it was a takeover where we had Andrade versus Nakamura, and you could just tell, like Andrade had been brought in as this foreign star that was about to really shine on this American platform, and it just didn't click. And then Nakamura's come in under a similar guise, and just the crowd have immediately just warmed to him. And I remember watching that match thinking, Andrade's getting released. Andrade's going. I remember that time thinking, he's done. This is a waste of everybody's time. But wow, I'm glad he wasn't. I'm always happy to be wrong. And the stuff with Vega led to a really surprisingly strong run as NXT champion. That match with Johnny Gargano, and this is, we're getting into such a cool time for NXT as Andrade becomes the champion, because it was that match that just drew me in as a fan. That
is this
match
the Philadelphia one?
Just saw the walls of disbelief just come crashing down. And I just completely absorbed in that. And that was down to Gargano, and that was down to Andrade, who was being given the time and the energy now to be a bit more his old self, which was perfect. I want to put him.
I'd say he's one of the top 2 tiers.
I either want to put him back of the best or top of lovely, lovely, lovely.
I think we go.
I want to put
top
him,
of
top of the. I want to put him because a lot of this I'm basing on the match that he had with Gargano, and the match that he had with Alistair Black was also good. Was also good, very good. Either top of oh gosh, top of lovely, lovely.
We'll go top of lovely. I think top of
lovely
is fair.
That's in keeping. I sound like when I do graded. It was brilliant, stupendous, fantastic. It's a B.
C. But he held the title for 140 days. Just the stuff with Vega to this day, it just works, doesn't it? We had the match. I think it was the match that was rated 5 stars. The first NXT match rated 5 stars by Dave, if that's a thing that
wasn't even in the Tokyo Dome.
It would have been 10 if it was. It would have been 47. So we had that match. We had the match initially where Johnny Gargano was the victim of mind games against Andrade and Zelina, because they threw a DIY t-shirt at him after DIY had imploded, and he was going, "Oh no! Oh,
I remember that t-shirt."
We got the match at Philadelphia. That was the 5-star match. Royal Rumble 2018 happened. Main roster debut. Big Poppington, of course. He eliminated Kofi Kingston back in 2018 at the Royal Rumble. He retained the title again against Gargano on NXT TV thanks to interference from Ciampa. That was a sort of a drawback to the later stages of that reign, because it sort of took a backseat kind of to Gargano versus Ciampa, which is still, is it the best story WWE have done for 5 years, 10 years, something like that?
Yes.
The title was very much taking a second step to Gargano versus Ciampa at this time. Ciampa gets involved in that match there, cost Gargano, which resulted in Johnny Wrestling leaving NXT as per the pre-match stipulation, Tom. Remember that one?
Yeah, and he was away for all of a few months.
Yeah, and then we get to NXT TakeOver New Orleans, WrestleMania 34 weekend. Andrade drops the title to Alistair Black. Top of lovely. Yeah.
I think because the match with Gargano, him being the NXT champion in the Royal Rumble, I think was another thing that set a lovely precedent for NXT. see the champ in the Rumble. Obviously now that's different because now NXT guys in the Rumble can fight to contend for the title, which is an even higher prestige. But yeah, Top are lovely.
Top are lovely. So then we're moving on to Alistair Black, and even though he did hold the title for 102 days, Tom, we had the big build-up with the customary NXT undefeated streak. The character work was great. He was moody. He was just kicking people's head off. He wasn't working by the hour. He was getting paid by the minute, so his matches were double quick. But then while Alistair Black was NXT champion, Gargano versus Ciampa, the feud just went to different levels. Everybody, all the focus, everybody's attentions were just on Ciampa versus Gargano, and Alistair Black as NXT champion really suffered because of that. So when he had the title, Tom, matches were slightly repetitive, I guess, due to the character, the moody character who would kick people in the head and then the match would be over with. And while we're watching Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa with all of that story, and then they tried to kill each other, it was hard. It was hard for Alistair Black, especially the Ciampa Gargano feud was bad enough, but Alistair Black defended his NXT championship at NXT Chicago II, the second installment, against who, Tom? Can you remember? Can you remember this massive NXT championship singles match?
It's really embarrassing, but and then this says it all.
It's not embarrassing, Tom. I'm saying it for a reason. It's because it was Lars Sullivan. As well as having Ciampa versus Gargano happening while he was champion, the challenges Alistair Black had, they were not up to scratch.
No, they weren't. And I think is this going to be our first champ that goes in the bin?
I was going to suggest that we don't put any in the bin. I don't think it's that. I would argue that McIntyre's was worse. Maybe.
Okay, all right. In that case, okay. I think you were looking at the back of bearable for Alistair Black. Alistair Black is a guy that doesn't need to be a champion. That's the thing about Alistair Black. His character is cool enough, sort of akin to like a Jake the Snake Roberts, like who never needed to be a champion in the company, and he can still have a presence within the company. But when he became the champion, like the chase was very, and then he became the champ, and like you say, and I feel bad as the NXT historian for forgetting that he defended against Lars Sullivan. I
wouldn't feel bad about that, Tom. It's Lars.
the issue he was competing with here was all the eyes were on some phenomenal work between Ciampa and Gargano. I think whoever was champion at this point would have been lost in the shuffle. And in a way, putting the belt on Alistair Black is basically a way of like metaphorically putting your keys on the table. So you can come back to them when you need them. Yeah. So obviously he would enter the fray a little bit later on. The title would enter the fray with those guys a bit later on. But yeah, he was a guy that didn't need a belt. He was a guy who, as champion, didn't really set the world alight, and he was a guy that didn't have the right people to fight against. So consequently, he's got to go back a bearable.
Back a bearable. It was nice to see him. It's just. What do you mean? What do you meant to do when you got...
It's nice to see anybody as champion, but he didn't need to be champion. That's the issue with Alistair Black. His character's so cool. If he never wins a belt in WWE, it's all right because there'll always be a place for him. Like there's surely a match between Black and The Undertaker, or Black and Bray Wyatt down the way that is going to do more for an Alistair Black than winning a belt at this point.
Yeah, so then we move on, of course, to Tommaso Ciampa, and I'm going into business for myself here,
No,
Tom.
you don't need to, because I think we're on the same page here.
Straight in the best, isn't he? 237 days as champion, and we've spoke about Neville taking the NXT title to another level, Owens to another level still. Tommaso Ciampa is a higher level than that for me because he would speak to that bloody title. He gave it a name. It was called Goldie. He would speak to it in a very sexual manner. Daddy's home, etc., etc. And more than that, Tom, as well as, treating it like a person, he would destroy friendships. Gargano, the friendship was gone just for the NXT championship, among other reasons. But, the NXT title was the main reason, I guess.
Looking back at those champions, like you say, that changed NXT, Adrian Neville sort of ushered in like the work rate era. Then you had Kevin Owens, who was just this destructive force. And Tommaso Ciampa turned NXT into a cult. Tommaso Ciampa as NXT champion is, and he is the most unexpected. When if you've been watching NXT for several years, been watching WWE for several years, you'd know Tommaso Ciampa. He was in the Cruiserweight Classic tournament. He had a match against Gargano that a lot of people raved about. He was always one of those guys that was on the periphery. Never considered one of those guys that was going to punch through. But my God, did he punch through? Like, his work as NXT champion, like you say,
the heel
talking
turn
to
was
the
it,
belt.
wasn't it?
Oh my
the
days.
Making of the man.
Just the moment that he turned his back on Gargano, the moment he drove his head into the stage, that just escalated. That just escalated things for Tommaso Ciampa. Him with the belt is such a perfect fit. Like, they belong together. They just do. Like, Ciampa grew with having the belt. Ciampa grew as a heel. Like, the whole thing of... Do you know what? It's that whole thing of less is more. And you talk about how, like... You mentioned how Bobby Roode was like the antithesis of NXT, and that was why you were a bigger fan than I was of his run in NXT. You want to talk the antithesis of NXT, right? Here's a guy who is on this show that prides itself with high production value and hyperbole and strong character presentation. Here's a guy that walks out to no music, to no lighting, and just surely walks out to the ring and just basks in boos, basks in hatred, and immediately, without having to have choirs and pedestals and violinists, you're drawn to him. Yeah. It's powerful. The best.
Yep, the absolute best.
Easily.
The feud with Gargano speaks for itself. We obviously spoke about earlier about Johnny losing his spot in NXT thanks to Ciampa getting involved in the title match. The unsanctioned match where Johnny was fighting to get his job back speaks for itself. I think that might have been the best one. I can't remember off the top of my head, really. We had the street fight, of course, where things went at different levels. The last man standing match. His reign also included matches against Velveteen Dream and Alistair Black. They were defeated as well. And then we get to the heartbreaking bit as well, because the reign was amazing. It looked like it could have gone on for even longer, but injury would strike him down at the worst possible moment. Also, unforgivable scenes on the main roster as they just disregarded 18 months to 2 years of storytelling. The best story WWE have probably done for a very long time is they teamed up these two people who were trying to kill each other not too long ago because NXT tag team partners, they're a thing. Ha ha.
You know what? We talk about how WWE roster call-ups have destroyed NXT stars. I'm going to be controversial here. The biggest victim of NXT call-ups crushing NXT stars is Tommaso Ciampa, because the injury that took him out was on SmackDown.
Yeah.
A match that he should not have been in. A match that he didn't need to be a part of. But because one day I believe Vince McMahon just woke up and went, let's get some NXT guys here quick. So all of a sudden you break all these storylines and bring 5 people up. Like, for no reason. And that was where he got injured. I was furious about that at the time because, like, this is a guy who's done his job and he's got injured on the job. And had they not been, like, had they not woke up that morning and decided, let's bring these guys up, that feud would have finished the way that it was meant to finish. And it would have finished it beautifully in the run-up to WrestleMania. But alas, that wasn't to be. And when Ciampa becomes champion again, my concern is it won't have the same vibe, because now Ciampa is so beloved, and like he's got music, and the music's great that he's got, and he's got a few more bells and whistles.
I think it's terrible, me.
I quite like it. I like the start, which is the flatlining. That's cool. Yeah. I would, and I think now he's a beloved face. So I kind of get that. This, next time he wins the belt, it will feel different, and it will hit different. But I'm basing it on this one title reign. He is the best. He's absolutely the best.
He is, yeah. So then we move on to Johnny Gargano, and I don't know if it's just me, Tom, I don't know if you agree, but Johnny Gargano when he doesn't have Tommaso Ciampa on the other side of the ring is a big issue for me when he's a babyface. He's fantastic now as a heel. Him and Candice work together sensationally. I think the way they're just annoying little twerps. But when Gargano's a babyface and he doesn't have Ciampa on the other side of the ring, it's a big issue.
They are so beautifully paired that, and it was the first major storyline that both of them had really as singles performers was against each other, and it was like going from 0 to 60. Because all of a sudden it wasn't just their first storyline, but it was the most captivating storyline. So of course everything that follows that, unless it's phenomenal, is going to drop them down a few pegs. And yeah, I think that Johnny Gargano's title win and subsequent reign, like for the guy who carried himself as like, oh, I'm the face of NXT, the belt didn't suit him. Do you know what it felt like? I'll tell you what it felt like. Have you ever seen Transformers the movie?
No, never.
The animated one, right?
No, never.
This was Ultra Magnus taking the Matrix. Okay? There'll be people that watch this that will get that. When Optimus Prime died, Ultra Magnus took the Matrix. It was believed that he was going to be the guy that was going to take over from Optimus Prime, but he couldn't work the Matrix, even though everyone went, well, I don't understand, you're the guy that's next in line to lead us. And he couldn't work the Matrix. And it was Hot Rod at the end of the film, one of the most unlikely, who managed to work it and became the leader of the Autobots. Gargano is Ultra Magnus in this particular story.
For it, Tom. But this reign, it was sort of, I guess they were setting off on one route with a long story with Ciampa set to continue. NXT TakeOver New York, I think it was. It was due to be Ciampa versus Gargano for the NXT Championship, but Ciampa needing that neck surgery thanks to the injury he suffered. I think he was in that match with the Bar on SmackDown. He was removed from the match, and then it was announced that Gargano would still be in the match, but facing Adam Cole now for the vacant title after Cole won. I think it was a fatal 5-way match to earn the right to replace Ciampa. Gargano would defeat Cole, of course, in a 2 out of 3 falls match, and that was where things. It was a nice. How do you feel? I thought it was a nice moment personally, where Ciampa came out to celebrate with his old pal who he tried to kill, and Candice was there as well. It was a nice moment, or was it just too? With a neck injury, they couldn't do anything. Would you rather?
I would have rather Ciampa not been there, because they ended up retconning that anyway.
Yeah.
So I would have rather Ciampa not. I mean, for me, it kind of felt like, yeah, probably in the heat of the moment, it was probably the right call to have Ciampa there with his mate. But I wouldn't have been upset if they hadn't done it.
Yeah.
If Gargano had just looked down the camera and went, "This is for you, Ciampa," that'd have been all right. I don't know if I needed them being pally-pally after I've watched them for a year decimate each other. Because then they ended up retconning it and they finished off their feud this year. Yeah. So they didn't need it, personally. And nor does a babyface Johnny Gargano need the NXT title, nor does it fit him. And I would want to put him. Oh man, I want to put him in meh. The middle category.
Just bearable or all right, one of the two.
I want to put him in all right.
All right.
I really do. And again, it's not a reflection on Gargano as a performer. I think Gargano as a heel now is excellent. I think that Gargano possibly having a run with the North American Championship, which may have happened depending on when this goes out. Ooh. And I think that will be something that they will use and they will run with beautifully, because Gargano as a champion, like doing the whole challenging rookies as a heel arsehole, I think is so much more fitting for Gargano than sort of flag waving babyface. That suits him much better.
Yeah, but Gargano, when he was in and around the title around here, the matches were how did you feel on the matches? I guess that's another contentious issue. They were all against Adam Cole. Obviously, Gargano won the first one. Cole then won the second one, which took place at NXT TakeOver 25, I think it was. And then with the third one, with Regal allowing the two lads to pick a stipulation each before he picked the steel cage match to close it. How did you feel about 1.5 million kickouts taking place in every single fall?
Johnny Kickout.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I think that it adds. I think I've never been massively against kickouts of stuff. I haven't. Like, that's part of how my disbelief gets suspended, by having these guys just like dig down deep and just push and get a shoulder up. And that's how most of the anticipation builds. I think I would feel different had Gargano kicked out of that flipping air raid crash off the, or whoever would have kicked out of that flipping air raid crash off the top of the cage at the end of said match. I think if somebody had kicked out of that, that would have been a problem for me. But that didn't happen, so I'm fine with it, personally. I think but that's kind of Gargano's style, I feel like, is in the same way now that Drew McIntyre's style is to kick out of one. That's a thing they're building with Drew on Raw, is that he's the guy that takes signature moves and kicks out at one. And that's not doing anybody any harm. That's sort of that's sort of giving Drew McIntyre an interesting little twist. And Gargano kicking out of stuff, I'm fine with. I'm all right with. The match is compelling. His matches were normally good. I just didn't think that it suited him being babyface champion. So the man that took the belt off him, thank goodness he was there.
Yeah, and even though the reign was only 57 days for Gargano, I think he's deserved to be in a higher ranking than the likes of, McIntyre and Zayn and Black, just due to the fact that he had at least one memorable match. One really unbelievable match.
So you're suggesting we put him higher?
No, I'm just saying that's justified where we're putting him, because I can see the comments happening now. How can you rank him higher than Alistair Black and stuff like that? I reckon that's justified. I don't care what you say. I love you all. Anyway, Adam Cole, then took the title, of course, off Gargano. He is still... I mean, we're taking a risk with this tier ranking, doing this on a TakeOver in your house weekend, where Velveteen Dream could, realistically, take the title off Adam Cole. Do you reckon he will?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. This is going to be one of those videos that may age like milk. But yes, I think that this is going to be... I think because before we get into Cole's title reign, I think Velveteen Dream has had so many shots at the top now that I think if you do any more and he misses, you're going to see that ball of momentum start rolling back down the hill. So I feel like this is as good a time as any to pull the trigger. I don't think it does any harm to have Adam Cole lose at this point. I know behind the scenes there is, from what we know in the news, what we've talked about in the news at time recording, there is some contractual stuff with Adam Cole that might force the hand tonight. We'll see. But I think I'm happy for Dream to become champion now. I want to see a Dream title reign. I want to see what Dream does. Dream hasn't changed who he is in becoming a face or a heel, and I quite admire that. Like, Dream is still the same arrogant so-and-so that he was when he was a bad guy. And no point has he stepped back or around that, and I really enjoy that. So, bring on a Velveteen Dream title reign. I'm very intrigued to see it. But as for Adam Cole, wow, here's a guy that has basically thrown the company on his back, and he's done it during one of the most intriguing times in the history of NXT. Like, they're on network television. They have a weekly television rival. He has been the NXT champion that took the fight to Raw and SmackDown. He has been the NXT champion during the era where, for the first time, NXT wasn't a developmental brand like it was with Adrian Neville, wasn't the little brand that could, like it was with Kevin Owens. It's actually now a third brand. This is like any time we put out a video that says a star has been called up, we are shot down, because it's no longer considered a call up. It's a call across. It's a move to. And Adam Cole has been at the forefront of that as NXT champion. He's been the champion that took the fight to Raw and SmackDown at Survivor Series. He was a featured there. He was the first person to defend the NXT title on a WWE pay-per-view. If I'm correct on that, strike me down if I'm not. So much legacy in Adam Cole's title reign, and everything he seems to turn his hand to, he's really strong at. So I want to put him in the best.
He's straight in the best for my money. Obviously, he is the longest reigning NXT champion of all time. As of March the 19th this year, I think he broke Finn Balor's 292-day record. If this video goes out on TakeOver Sunday, I think the reign's at 371 days, or 372, around that area, somewhere like that. It was that stretch of matches he had in and around Survivor Series time, where WWE was sort of doing things on the fly and flying people, because it was around the Saudi Arabia time, wasn't it? So NXT were drafted in, and he was flying around the world, having a great match here, flying off there, having a great match there. Work rate, workhorse, all of the works.
What does it say for a guy who, at a moment's notice, can arrive in an arena and have a belter of a TV match with Daniel Bryan? Daniel Bryan's great, so that's handy. But with Adam Cole, like just puts all that on his back and just rolls with it. Some comments made about Adam Cole recently concern me, considering there's like obviously a lot of contractual talk at the moment, which again is a comment that might age like milk now. Where I think it was Road Dogg who did an interview on After the Bell, who was singing the praises of Adam Cole, but just said if only he was the same size as Karrion Kross, he'd be Universal Champion. So
it's a shame that
what you've done there, just as a guy's negotiated his contract, is you've just built a glass ceiling above his head.
Yeah, it's a shame we're still here with that bollocks. There's no typical look for a wrestler, is there? No. Kevin Owens can be world champion, Adam Cole can be world champion. Because that's my biggest thing that I think will hold Cole back is literally, right, just because Vince McMahon is got his paunch on for big sweaty men, it's the size of Adam Cole's arms.
Yeah.
That is it, isn't it? It's a sad outlook on how WWE do their booking and whatnot, but it's true, isn't it? It's such a shame. But we look at Cole's reign as NXT champion. We had the stuff with Gargano and then Ciampa, and then Pete Dunne, as you say, was defeated at Survivor Series 2019. Kickouts, so many kickouts in all the matches. If you like them or you don't, that's up to your own personal taste. But also, even though he was NXT champion, sometimes the championship took a backseat to feuds with stables, with the Undisputed Era. We had the stuff with Team Ciampa at that thing that Regal likes to shout. And then, War Games! And then the Imperium, the NXT UK stuff at Worlds Collide at the start of the year. Even though the championship sort of took a bit of a sidestep to do this warfare between stables, it still felt like a big deal, because it was around the waist of Adam Cole, and he's a bastard, but in the best possible way, and he just makes people like me feel inadequate, and how he does everything so well. Do you get that feeling with him sometimes? You know, that person who just, like, no matter what he does, it's always good. And you're sat there thinking, I try sometimes and it's bad. But Adam Cole does stuff and is good.
He's just effortlessly good. Effortlessly good. And WWE, I'm hoping, are aware of how good they have it with Adam Cole as champion. Yeah,
they should break the bank to keep him. Because I think Britt Baker as well was doing that podcast Aubrey and Tony do for AEW. And she was like, I would love to see it, one big happy family. I'd love to see Adam Cole have a match soon, I think she's like, in the near future.
It was like,
oh dear, Triple H must be sweating after hearing that one. Anyway, there is our tier ranking for NXT champions in the history of that illustrious championship. Tom, let's go through the tiers one by one. I don't think anyone deserves to get in the bin. Do you disagree with that?
Do you want to see? Even the lowest level champions have still performed to a certain level. Like, there's nobody there that is undeserving.
No.
So I don't want anyone in the bin.
We have Big E, Rollins, who were a victim, of course, of early NXT being what it was and finding its identity in just about bearable, along with Drew McIntyre, who wasn't really. Is he the worst one of? If you're gonna call one of them worst, is he the worst NXT champion of all time?
I guess he is. Is that weird saying that? I feel like Jack came to the same. I think we came to the same conclusion when I think it was Jack that did the voice for it. I think we all came to the same conclusion with the ranked video. Strangely, if I remember correctly.
Bloody hell! There we go. We're on the same page. Continuity, a cultaholic. Who would have thought it? Sami Zayn is also just about bearable, but of course he was building up Kevin Owens and Alistair Black just because he didn't really have anybody to fight while everyone was watching Gargano and Ciampa do their thing. He's in there as well. All right, we have Bobby Roode, we have Shinsuke Nakamura. He deserves to be there, doesn't he? And Johnny Gargano. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Andrade. Bo Dallas. Yes, Bo Dallas as NXT champion was fantastic. And Samoa Joe. And now we move on to what we do traditionally in these tier list videos. Tom, we're going to rank the people inside of the best tier so we find out once and for all who is the best NXT champion of all time. So, Neville. Does Kevin Owens deserve to go above Neville?
Yes.
I would agree with that completely. Does Finn Balor deserve to go above Neville and Kevin Owens? I would say yes, personally.
Above Kevin?
He was the face of that place for a long, long time.
Yeah, go on then. Yeah, fine.
Finn Balor. Tommaso Ciampa, above Balor, above Owens, above Neville. He's definitely above Neville.
Yeah.
Definitely above KO. Even though I love KO as NXT champion. Now, is he better than Finn Balor as NXT champion?
As NXT champion, I would personally say yes.
I would say yes as well. Just that he made that thing feel like the most important thing in the world ever. And then we have Adam Cole rounding off the best tier. Is he better as NXT champion than Tommaso Ciampa?
Oh, man. Oh, man.
I'm going to... I don't know if it's just personal preference. I'm going to say no.
You think Cole's better?
I'm going to say Ciampa's better.
Ciampa's better. I'm leaning towards Ciampa.
This is tense.
I'm leaning towards Ciampa.
Is Adam Cole Babe a better NXT champion than Finn Balor?
Yes. Yeah, I think Adam Cole has done more with the NXT title than Finn Balor. So yes.
I would fully agree with that. So there we have the best tier. Working up from the bottom of the best tier, we go Neville, then KO, then Balor, then Cole, and the best NXT champion of all time is Tommaso Ciampa. There we have it, Thomas. We've come to the end of this tier ranking. Any closing thoughts on this takeover in your Hoos weekend?
Let's hope Velveteen Dream enters the list. Let's hope this list ages like milk and we have to add Velveteen Dream.
We'll have to come back and do it all again.
We'll do it all again next time. No, we're very blessed to have a list like this where where it's a fight to choose who the best one is. There's so many people in the best category. It says a lot for NXT, really. As somebody, I watched the last episode of ECW, and they announced NXT. I remember being annoyed because I was like, "Oh man, ECW's done already. That's annoying." How stupid that boy was. That here we are now, and it's possibly the greatest roster that WWE has.
Yeah, it was justified initially with that game show, though. We've come a long way over the past. My God, it's been 10 years.
We've come a long way, baby.
So there we have it. That's our tier ranking. No doubt about it. You completely disagree with everything myself and Tom have said. But despite that, we'll be back next week with another tier rankings thingy. I've been Gary YouTube, joined by a second Gary YouTube with Tom Campbell's head right there. That was it. See you next time. Tatty bye.
Love you, bye.
Wave the camera, Gary.